Welcome to the blueprint of the biological age. In From Molecules to Mankind, Louis Pasteur explores the structural evolution of modern biomedicine, bridging the gap between microscopic discovery and global societal impact. The visual composition contrasts two vital dimensions of science. To the left, a geometric crystalline schema represents the rigorous, structural precision of molecular research. To the right, an interconnected map of Europe traces the intellectual network linking major scientific hubs such as London, Paris, and Vienna. Together, they illustrate how foundational science scaled into an international institutional framework. This slide encapsulates the journey from the invisible building blocks of life to a macroscopic infrastructure dedicated to human health and survival. Observe the scale-up arc, a testament to the fact that chance favors only the prepared mind. We trace Louis Pasteur's evolution from a chemist analyzing inanimate molecules to a visionary biologist dismantling centuries of dogma. This journey moves systematically through 6 scales, beginning with the microscopic world of microbes and insects, progressing through the protection of livestock, and finally reaching the human and global stages. Each breakthrough acted as a catalyst, unlocking the next level of understanding. Pasteur didn't just solve isolated crises, he authored the fundamental operating system of modern public health. This slide captures the essence of a chain reaction that started in a lab and expanded into the global institutional framework we rely on today. In 1847, a young Louis Pasteur tackled a scientific riddle that would redefine our understanding of existence. The challenge was a chemical paradox, 2 identical substances that interacted with polarized light in completely different ways. Pasteur's breakthrough was the discovery of chirality, or molecular asymmetry. Using the analogy of human hands, he proved that molecules could exist as non-superimposable mirror images. This wasn't just a triumph of chemistry. It was a profound paradigm shift. Pasteur theorized that this handedness was the unique signature of biological processes. By identifying that only life creates these asymmetrical forms, the chemist began his transformation into a biologist, forever linking the structure of matter to the mystery of life. Welcome to one of the 19th century's greatest intellectual overhauls. This slide illustrates the fundamental paradigm shift from ancient dogma to empirical proof, orchestrated by Louis Pasteur. We see a transition across 3 critical domains. In disease, science abandoned the vague miasma theory for the precision of germ theory. Regarding the origins of microbes, the myth of spontaneous generation fell to biogenesis, the realization that all life stems from pre-existing life. Lastly, fermentation was revealed not as lifeless chemical decay, but as a dynamic biological process powered by microbes. By replacing superstition and chemical guesswork with biological evidence, Pasteur didn't just change the rules of science, he fundamentally rewrote the story of life itself. In this pivotal demonstration, Louis Pasteur delivers the final blow to the myth of spontaneous generation using his ingenious swan neck flask model. Through a 3-stage process, sterilization, incubation, and contamination, Pasteur proved that life does not emerge from a mystical life force in the air, but from microscopic particles carried by dust. By trapping spores in the flask's U-bend, he kept the broth sterile indefinitely, only for life to bloom once it contacted the trapped sediment. This work, which earned him the Alhambra Prize, was validated across varying altitudes from Paris to the Alps. Ultimately, Pasteur demonstrated that microbe density correlates with environmental dust, establishing that all life comes from pre-existing life. On this slide, we witness Louis Pasteur as the economic savior of France. He applied his germ-fighting principles to rescue entire industries from imminent collapse. First, he solved the crisis of spoiling wine and beer by inventing pasteurization, heating liquids to 50 to 60 degrees Celsius to kill souring microbes without ruining the flavor. Next, he saved the silk trade from devastating blights by developing a cellular selection method to microscopically vet and protect healthy silkworm eggs. Finally, these methods scaled to global agriculture, where pasteurizing dairy products revolutionized public safety by curbing foodborne pathogens like bovine tuberculosis. This slide highlights how Pasteur's lab-borne discoveries protected both national economies and the health of the global population. Step into the operating theater where the leap changed everything. This slide bridges the gap between the cellar and the clinic, positing that if microscopic organisms could sour wine, they could certainly devastate the human body. Pasteur's insights sparked an aseptic revolution, directly inspiring Joseph Lister to pioneer antiseptics. We observe the implementation of Pasteur's protocols. Mandatory hand washing, high-heat sterilization at 130 degrees Celsius, and the strategic isolation of contagious patients. By shifting the focus from treating the smell of decay to physically barring pathogens like Staphylococcus and Streptococcus, surgical mortality plummeted. It was a transition from merely managing putrefaction to outsmarting the invisible enemy, fundamentally redesigning the architecture of the modern hospital ward. Welcome back to the lab, where sometimes a long holiday is exactly what science needs. In 1879, a forgotten culture of chicken cholera, weakened by exposure to oxygen, led to a monumental discovery: the mechanics of attenuation. The activation curve illustrates this breakthrough. While a fresh pathogen, A, strikes with lethal force, an aged version, B, remains in the safe zone, training the host's immune memory. This internal shield ensures that any subsequent virulent attack, C, is neutralized instantly. Pasteur realized he could artificially manipulate nature's lethality into life-saving protection, marking the birth of modern vaccinology, a triumph born from a simple, serendipitous oversight. Welcome to the Vaccine Arsenal, a strategic overview of how Louis Pasteur transformed laboratory serendipity into a systematic science of protection. This comparative matrix tracks 4 landmark breakthroughs that moved from the barnyard to the human bedside. We observe a diverse tactical range, using oxygen and time to defeat chicken cholera, precision heating to secure a 100% survival rate against anthrax, and serial animal passage to rescue the European swine industry. The arsenal culminates in 1885 with the unseen rabies virus, neutralized through the desiccation of spinal tissue for the first successful human trial. This progression from bacterium to virus solidified the Pasteurian method, providing a standardized blueprint for artificial immunity that remains the foundation of modern immunology. We arrive at the final frontier: rabies. In 1885, Pasteur faced an unseen enemy, a virus too small to be seen or cultured in a petri dish. Working with Émile Roux, he developed a radical method, cultivating the pathogen in vivo and weakening it by drying infected rabbit spinal cords over potassium hydroxide. The stakes reached a fever pitch with the human gamble. Though not a physician, Pasteur crossed ethical boundaries to treat 9-year-old Joseph Meister. By administering a 14-day series of progressively more virulent doses, Pasteur proved that vaccination could succeed post-exposure. Meister's survival was the definitive breakthrough, transforming a terrifying death sentence into the crowning achievement of the Pasteurian Revolution. Behold the grand architecture of global public health, a temple built upon the enduring legacy of Louis Pasteur. This final slide reveals the 3 monumental pillars that support the modern world. First, pasteurization, born from industrial crises, secures our global food and beverage safety. Second, asepsis and hygiene, emerging from Pasteur's battle against spontaneous generation, ensure surgical survival and infection control. Finally, vaccinology, the fruit of his work on pathogen attenuation, stands as our shield for the eradication of infectious diseases. Pasteur did more than solve isolated problems, he authored the fundamental operating system of modern biology, forever shifting humanity's relationship with the microscopic realm and establishing the structural foundation of modern biomedicine. Our journey concludes where the man becomes a monument, a universal legacy. In 1888, the Institut Pasteur opened its doors, a sanctuary for research funded entirely by a grateful global public. Since then, it has stood as a beacon of discovery, yielding 10 Nobel Prizes and the identification of the HIV virus. Yet, the most poignant tribute lies within the crypt. Interred at the Institute, Pasteur is surrounded by golden mosaics depicting the organisms he conquered. From the vines of the vineyard to the silkworm and livestock. He famously believed that science knows no country, viewing knowledge as a torch meant to illuminate the entire world. This final slide celebrates a legacy that transcends borders, proving that one prepared mind can indeed change the fate of all mankind.